Adam Schiff is in full panic mode, and I have to say, it's actually entertaining. Few figures in Washington embody the dishonesty, corruption, and sheer arrogance of the modern Democratic Party quite like Rep. Adam Schiff. For years, Schiff has been at the center of the left's relentless crusade against Donald Trump, peddling baseless conspiracy theories, spearheading some impeachment trials, and using his position to push a partisan witch hunt in the form of the January 6th committee. Now, as Trump signals a much-needed house cleaning at the Department of Justice and the FBI, Schiff's panic is palpable. And for good reason. If justice is finally served, his role in the greatest political hoax of our time will be fully exposed. Adam Schiff has built his career on deception. His most infamous lie, of course, was his persistent claim that he possessed direct evidence of collusion between Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and Russia. For years, he paraded himself across CNN and MSNBC, vowing that proof of Trump's treason was imminent. Yet, when the Mueller report debunked this grand conspiracy theory, Schiff simply shrugged and moved on, never held accountable for misleading the American people. But Schiff's dishonesty didn't end there. He played a central role in Trump's first impeachment, pushing the Ukrainian quid pro quo narrative despite knowing full well that Trump's call with President Zelensky contained nothing impeachable. Schiff even fabricated key portions of the conversation during a congressional hearing, shamelessly reading a fictionalized version of Trump's words into the record. His objective wasn't the truth. It was to manufacture a pretext to remove Trump from office by any means necessary. Not content with his previous failures, Schiff became one of the most aggressive members of the January 6th committee, a hyper-partisan inquisition designed to paint Trump and his supporters as insurrectionists. This was not an impartial investigation, it was a Soviet-style show trial where the outcome was predetermined and dissenting voices were systematically silenced. Schiff and his allies cherry-picked evidence, suppressed exculpatory material, and engaged in outright deception, even doctoring text messages to create false narratives. Schiff's role on this committee was to amplify the left's talking points and help build the case for criminally charging Trump. It was never about justice or protecting democracy. It was always about power, ensuring that Trump was politically destroyed and unable to challenge the establishment ever again. Trump's recent signals that he intends to clean house at the DOJ and FBI have sent the Washington swamp into a frenzy, and no one is more terrified than Schiff. The DOJ and FBI have been weaponized against conservatives for years, and Schiff knows full well that their corrupt leadership has served as a shield for Democrats like him. If Trump follows through with his purge, Schiff's worst nightmare could come true, a DOJ that actually investigates Democratic corruption instead of covering it up. Schiff's panicked rhetoric reflects this fear. He has hysterically warned that Trump will turn the DOJ into his personal weapon, conveniently ignoring that this is precisely what Democrats have already done. Under Biden, the DOJ has targeted pro-life activists, harassed concerned parents at school board meetings, and pursued endless lawfare against Trump himself. Yet, Schiff now pretends to be concerned about political prosecutions only because the investigations might finally turn toward him and his allies. For years, Schiff and his fellow Democrats have demanded that the DOJ and FBI go after Trump and his supporters with relentless aggression. They cheered as the FBI raided Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. They supported the baseless prosecutions brought by leftist district attorneys in New York and Georgia. They gleefully weaponized federal agencies against their political enemies. But now that Trump has taken power again, Schiff is suddenly calling for the rule of law. This is not about principle, it's about self-preservation. Schiff understands that a Trump-led DOJ could finally conduct real investigations into the abuses of the Biden administration, the origins of the Russia hoax, and the corruption within the Democratic Party itself. Schiff's panic should serve as a reminder of just how much damage he has done to our country. He spent years misleading the public, dividing the nation, and using his position to undermine the democratic process. If justice is to be restored, he must be held accountable. Trump's return to office should bring not just reform at the DOJ and FBI but real consequences for those who have abused their power. Adam Schiff's lies have been allowed to fester unchecked for too long. It is time for accountability, and Schiff knows it. That's why he's panicking. For those who doubt Schiff's growing anxiety, one only needs to watch his recent television appearances. Videos of Schiff stumbling over his words, nervously warning about Trump's supposed authoritarianism, and fear-mongering about a dictatorship are all over the internet. His interviews on CNN and MSNBC reveal a man desperate to cling to power, terrified that his lies may finally catch up with him. The American people can see through his deception, and the video evidence speaks for itself. As expected, the liberal media has erupted in outrage over Trump's house-cleaning at the DOJ and FBI. From CNN to the New York Times, leftist pundits are breathlessly warning that Trump will weaponize law enforcement, a laughable claim given how the Biden administration has already done exactly that. The media, which cheered every baseless prosecution and politically motivated raid against Trump and his allies, now pretends to care about the integrity of these institutions. MSNBC hosts have all but declared Trump's second term will be a dictatorship, while the Washington Post has published a flurry of fear-mongering op-eds about the supposed death of democracy. In reality, their panic is rooted in the fact that they will no longer have a DOJ and FBI willing to do their bidding. The liberal media has spent years protecting the establishment's abuses, and Trump's purge threatens to expose their complicity in one of the greatest political cover-ups in modern history. Watch the following clip from the Communist News Network, otherwise known as CNN, that shows how off the rails Trump's purge has driven them, and please share your thoughts in the comments.
Breaking news. The Justice Department has now fired more than a dozen prosecutors who worked on January 6 cases, part of President Trump's continuing purge. Our senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez, has the details. Evan, so these are DOJ employees who investigated the violent attack on the Capitol on January 6, led to many prosecutions. They've been fired. Any justification offered?
Well, the justification that's being offered by the Justice Department is that they were converted to stay on after those cases ended, and the new leadership says that is tying their hands, and they don't want them there anymore. And so what this is one of the dozen prosecutors, Jim, who were brought on temporarily because there was a surge of activity and cases that were being handled. And near the end of the Biden administration, they were converted to stay on inside the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington. And I'll read you just a part of what Emile Bove, who's the acting Deputy Attorney General, says. He says that in the matter in which these conversions were executed resulted in the mass, purportedly permanent hiring of a group of AUSAs, these are Assistant U.S. Attorneys, in the weeks leading up to President Trump's second inauguration, which has improperly hindered the ability of the acting U.S. Attorney to staff his office. So what they're saying is that this is subversive personnel actions by the previous administration that they want to stop. Now, separately from this, we also know that FBI agents are expected to also be targeted as part of this purge. Now, these are agents who worked the January 6 cases, as well as the investigation of Donald Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents. Now, the difference, as you know, Jim, is that agents really have no choice on what cases they're assigned, right? They are told what cases to work. And so there's a lot of consternation inside the FBI as to why these people would necessarily been targeted for doing simply their jobs.
But let me ask you, those FBI agents, they were not temporary hires, right,
No.
for this particular case. So the justification offered for firing the Justice Department officials does not hold up for firing the FBI officials.
Right, those are career agents and analysts, and so the question now, Jim, becomes whether, obviously whether these firings and if any reassignments, any of that holds up in court if these people decide to challenge and file lawsuits over the handling of their careers.